Poppy Playtime Chapter 4 is full of hidden messages from the developers, constant foreshadowing, and the return of secret characters everyone missed. But let's start with one of the longest running traditions in the franchise, the lemon. See, every year the devs try to find a way to hide a lemon inside the game, and players have already discovered this one. When you're sneaking around the prison blocks, one of the rooms is full of huge pistons. Well, 99.9% of players walk through here without a care in the world. However, if you reach your hand into the darkness, you'll pick up the classic lemon. Another fun fact, it's voiced by one of the game's devs named Toby. But not all Easter eggs are adorable. This is a horror game after all. So when you boot up Chapter 4 and get this ominous commercial for Doey the Dough Man, pay attention to the very end.
Call the number on screen and order your Doey today. Order now while supplies last. Shipping and handling costs may vary. Do not ingest or any products in the Doey box.
That mysterious number? Well, I decided to call it just to see what would happen. And let's just say, the results were disturbing.
Thank you for calling Playtime Code. Please remain on the line and someone will be with you momentarily. Thank you for calling Playtime Code. Home of beloved children's toys like Huggy Wuggy. Goodbye.
Not gonna lie, it kind of freaked me out when I heard this for the first time. I don't know if this number is gonna be working for much longer, so go ahead and try it for yourself while you can. But now, it's time we talk about a secret that probably shouldn't have been so hidden. Later in the game, before you face the doctor, he locks you in a room with one simple problem.
If you want to leave this room, it'll come at a cost. It's this little life or yours. You know what you have to do. It's your mission. The door will open, or is maintaining the veil of your morality more important?
Being totally honest here, when I played, I killed the critter without hesitation. I just assumed there was no other choice, but turns out there actually is. Most of you are probably thinking, what? You can actually escape this place? And yeah, all we had to do was look up.
Attitude.
Now, it's not the only grand reveal of Chapter 4. One of the best new characters, of course, was Doey. I mean, who doesn't love this guy? He just has way too much charisma, and yet one of the most tragic stories in the franchise. If you're one of those players who decided to speedrun the game and not read a single note, honestly, shame on you. Because these notes were the key to figuring out the hidden backstory of Doey and why he was more lovable than ever. A lot of people only learned about Doey from the VHS tapes, where they tell us all about his former self, Kevin.
We've successfully extracted subject 1322, Kevin Barnes. Trouble getting along with others, aggressive and often confrontational social tendencies, and an otherwise combative nature clearly relay that Kevin is, put simply, a problem child. So, in spite of said concerns, in Dr. Sawyer's eyes, Kevin is ideal for the project.
Except, that's not the whole picture. You'd be especially confused if you saw Doey later on with 3 faces, and it's all hidden inside the notes. In that same room, you could read a note talking about a different boy named Matthew, how he was a natural-born leader, and more, all under Project Doey. So then, who is the third child? Well, you've secretly known about it since the second you loaded up the game. That's Jack, and he originally wasn't even meant to be a part of Doey. As you can see, he fell into the vat and was mixed in with Kevin and Matthew, joining them forever in the afterlife. This chapter is seriously dark. But if you haven't been reading the notes, you're also missing out on the tragedy of Riley. As you enter the prison for the first time just before you get on the train, you can find a ton of notes belonging to an orphan named Riley. She tells you all about her story, getting adopted, realizing she's an experiment, and then waking up with fur in a plush toy body. It is an absolutely horrifying read. But then the final entry tells us how she stole a train key from the conductor and hid it in a place where nobody could find it. If we only knew, this meant hiding herself away as well. As you get into the train, you can find the key, and Riley with it. It is one of the most horrifying scenes in any Poppy Playtime chapter. And yet, this also reveals a detail we've been curious about for a while now. Is it just the souls of the children that are turned into plushies, or are their skeletons intact too? Well, this morbid site confirms the experiments are quite literally just body horror under there, and you can actually find graphic stuff like this all over the game. I mean, even the conductor is one of them. If you didn't know, this is actually the first time humans have appeared in Poppy Playtime. Usually they're only seen through VHS tapes and voice lines. Now we get to see what actually happened to them with our very own eyes. But back to our friend Doey, a character Mob has been teasing under our noses this whole time. In the Doey commercial from the very start, pay attention to the frame photo. It shows 3 Doeys embracing each other, teasing the grand reveal. Except, while his entire arc is depressing, there's one character death that straight up made fans angry. In the lead up to Chapter 4's release, the devs kept showing us a new character called Pianosaurus. We finally get his reveal in-game, talking to his cutout, before actually seeing him in the next room. But then, out of nowhere, well, this brutal scene was actually foreshadowed by the devs last Christmas. In a holiday art piece, you can look out the window and see Doey using Pianosaurus as a sleigh. And I gotta say, this is also really similar to his arms grabbing him in the game. But they've been teasing Doey even before this. In fact, their very first hint was all the way back in July of last year. They posted an innocent artwork of Huggy Wuggy on the beach, except if you zoomed into his magazine, it has 3 arms coming together in an embrace. The exact same pattern found on Doey's chest. They even named this Hour Magazine because, well, you know, how could you not mention the Hour of Joy? Although, it's not the only time they secretly tease Doey's arms. This art of the smiling critters shows the exact same pose, and the devs even use the critters to recreate the colors. That's insane attention to detail, but it's also pretty sad considering it's Doey who is protecting them in the first place. Just moments before you get to the end, you can find a Huggy Wuggy cutout, and this thing works perfectly. Just like the other cardboard characters we've seen so far, they all show up later with a much less friendly personality. Except, we all know that Huggy died in Chapter 1, right? Well, as many fans have theorized for years, he survived the fall. It was even part of our video back in Chapter 2, where we found blood and blue fur on the wall, seemingly confirming he was alive. Yeah, the devs have been teasing this for a super long time. And not gonna lie, it is nice to see some theories come true. If you're wondering whether this is the Huggy we know, look closely during his reveal and you'll see he's covered in bandages. So whoever found him was able to stitch him up. But he's not the only character to make a return, because Barry the Cart is back in Chapter 4. Sure, a little lesser known than the iconic Huggy Wuggy, but when you're solving a puzzle you have to pull Barry across the tracks, and a lot of fans were happy to see him. Now, once you get to Safe Haven, make sure you take a breather from all the horror and just have some fun. Because even the smallest moments have secrets, like if you take a ball and punch it into the net. The critters repurposed a cutout into a goalkeeper, and once you get it past him, different sound effects can play. These games truly have so many details, although you never really get to see some of the best ones up close. Every single one of the nightmare critters have their own zippers, all unique to their character. There's Raby Baby the vampire bat who has a blood drop, Toolie the rat has a fishbone, and Icky Licky the poison frog has a toxic symbol. But my absolute personal favorite has got to be Simon Smoke with that $sign. And one of the creepiest details can only be found if you're using a free cam. If you take a close look at Yarnaby, you'll spot several scars all over his body. From scratches to claw marks, it is pretty clear he's been in some kind of fight. But this leaves a question. Are these from the doctor, or are there more animals we're yet to see? Well, if you take a look at his bio on the website, you'll discover that he was part of a wildlife conservation campaign. So I'm guessing we'll probably see more of these wild animals in the future. And while we're on the topic of Yarnaby, there are a ton of hidden voice actors in Chapter 4. Now, Yarn doesn't exactly talk all that much, but the sounds he makes are terrifying. And did you know he's actually voiced by the composer of the game? Whereas Pianosaurus' cardboard cutout is voiced by Alex Rochon. He's a YouTuber and voice actor who also improvised this iconic jingle.
Hello, I'm Pianosaurus. I used to be in a band, then the asteroid hit.
But something I could have never expected was the return of the most nostalgic feature from Chapter 1. Poppy Playtime is known for these two things right here. Yeah, your hands. And yeah, after the first part of the game all those years ago, they got rid of the red hand and we never saw it again. Until now, where Mob has finally brought it back for Chapter 4. We get to use it on scanners before eventually upgrading it to the Omni hand. Speaking of red, once you make it to the very end of the game, you'll reach the entrance for this strange place known as the lab. Well, before you walk in there and put the tape in, pay attention to the long corridor. This is a garden of flowers, but more specifically, poppies. I wonder if Poppy herself was made down here, and they just named her after what was growing in the garden. Either way, gotta love the attention to detail. Although, there's some weird elements to the game that I don't even have an explanation for. Like how some bloodstains are supposedly shaped like countries. I know it sounds super weird, but I'm telling the truth here. Players have found stains like this one, which literally just looks like the Netherlands. Who knows, maybe one of the environmental artists just wanted a morbid reminder of home. Whoever it was, it's not the first time a developer has thrown a secret message about themselves in the game. Over in Safe Haven's infirmary, there's a bookshelf full of strange items. Looking closely at them, you can see artworks of the characters and a book written by Jeff Soames. Now, if you're wondering, Seth Jones is an environmental artist at Mob Entertainment, so this was just a funny way to immortalize yourself in the world you're building. Those were secrets and Easter eggs you missed in Poppy Playtime Chapter 4. It's been Sammy. Keep it here on T5G.